Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I've got Hans Von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation. He's been on the program before and talks a lot about what's happening from a public policy perspective when it comes to legal issues. AIG was considering joining a lawsuit regarding U.S. bailouts. And Hans, you've been writing about this recently. My understanding, it doesn't appear they are going to do that, but kind of give us just lay out what the situation looks like and who are some of the players.
Sure. Hank Greenberg, who for, I think, 4 decades was the head of AIG until he was forced out in 2005, has a company called Star International, which used to own 12% of AIG. And Greenberg has filed 2 different lawsuits, one in New York and one in Washington, D.C., in the Court of Federal Claims. The New York lawsuit was dismissed by a federal judge there, but the lawsuit in Washington is proceeding. And basically what he's saying in the Washington lawsuit is that when AIG was bailed out by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and I'm sure you know, they were the biggest single largest rescued organization,
yes,
up to $182 billion.
Unbelievable.
The feds ended up owning 92% of the company. What Star is saying is that the feds diluted the interests of AIG minority shareholders like him, and they did so without allowing the minority shareholders to take a vote over it, and that because of that, their interests were hurt, and therefore they need to be compensated for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so and where are they in that process?
They are in the process of the government tried to get, as I say, the New York suit was dismissed.
Right. But where are they in relationship to the Washington suit?
Well, the lawsuit in Washington is ongoing. In fact, the government tried to get it dismissed the way they were successfully able to do it in New York, and the judge in Washington, a guy named Thomas Wheeler, said no. This case is not going to be dismissed. It's going to go forward. That was a pretty recent decision, so it's in the process now of going forward, and he's making a claim for about $25 billion that he says the minority shareholders were hurt because of the way the government took over the company. And
they're suing the government.
Yes.
And so $25 billion, how much does the federal government spend in an hour or even in a minute?
A lot. Now, as you probably know, the feds got rid of their final shares of the company, I think, in December, and got all of their money back plus about $23 billion in profit. But the whole point of Greenberg's lawsuit is that some of that profit was at the expense of minority shareholders. Now, on Wednesday, the board of AIG said they were not going to participate or get into this lawsuit. There had been this huge public outcry against them. There were even members of Congress who wrote them letters saying, well, you better not do this because we gave you the money to rescue you. But look, I actually think this case should go forward because this is in many ways similar to what happened to the bondholders in the General Motors case. Mm-hmm. Because as you know, what happened there was that the president basically protected the unions from having to suffer any reductions in benefits or anything else, and they did everything at the expense of GM bondholders who basically had their legal rights just overwritten by fiat, by the government saying, well, you may have a contract and you may be entitled to certain benefits, but we're just going to override that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible if you think about it. So let me ask you then, what do you think in terms of this becoming a springboard to a lot of other lawsuits by other companies who did not like the consequences of this type of bailout? Is it a possibility that this could snowball?
I don't think so because the expense of this is tremendous. Greenberg has a lot of money. He's able to fund a lawsuit like this, even though publicly it may be unpopular. It is tough to fight City Hall, and it's even tougher to fight the federal City Hall, which is the federal government, because they have basically unlimited resources and unlimited lawyers that they can throw at cases like this. So the fact that Greenberg has been allowed to go forward by a federal judge in Washington, I don't think that will lead to many other cases being filed, because it is just too tough to fight the government. Yeah,
it is. And we hear about, I can't even recall. Can you name a couple of suits where the government lost?
Well, I'll give you an example of how much it can cost you to do this. About a week ago, in a totally unrelated case, a 3-judge panel in Washington said that the government was responsible for the costs to South Carolina of fighting the Justice Department over their new voter ID law. South Carolina took on Eric Holder in that. They did win. But the Attorney General for South Carolina said it cost them $3.5 million to fight the Justice Department to overturn the Justice Department's claim and decision objecting to their voter ID law. For a state, that's a lot of money to spend fighting the government.
Yeah. And so are they asking to be compensated now by the federal government?
Well, they have been able to get a court to say that the federal government is going to have to pay their costs, not all of their attorney's fees, but at least the costs of and expenses of things like depositions and the transcriptions of the case. So that's a small part of that $3.5 million, but it goes to show how much it costs to fight the government, even when the government is wrong.
It's incredible. And because of the largesse of government, it can afford to be oppressive, because in the end it can, just print more money, to make these problems go away. It's really incredible. Hans Von Spakovsky is with Heritage Foundation at heritage.org, one of my favorite think tanks. Always appreciate having you on.
Thanks for having me.
All right. When we come back, we are, of course, going to have much, much more for you. I do want to remind you that the best content here can be found over there at usdailyreview.com. I'm going to ask my man here, Sigmund, get back on the line.
Yo, what's up?
Yeah, so after the show, I'm going to be doing video production.
Oh, cool.
With Andy, and I need 3 good topics for us to talk about. And obviously one of them would be Blog World, which I came back from in Vegas. Said it'd be cool. Blog World, what they're trying to do is create a bridge between business and social media. And because the two have almost been alien towards each other, and it's kind of an interesting thing what they got going on. So I'm obviously going to talk about that, but let's a couple other things. What do you think is kind of hot on the topic sphere?
Well, obviously the fallout of the fiscal cliff debacle, what that means for people, because, they're really trying to spin it like it's a good deal for the American people that the deal was made. Maybe about Boehner being reinvigorated as the Speaker of the House. Now he thinks that he can do no wrong, because if he survived the fiscal cliff, then he can survive anything, except maybe a chick flick.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. There's lots of things going on. Obviously, gun control. I love the Larry Pratt story with
Larry Pratt has been a guest often on the show.
Many times. He's a great guy of Gun Owners of America. He was on Piers Morgan recently, and Piers Morgan just tried to eviscerate him and called him all sorts of names. And really ad hominem attacks. That's all he had, because he had no actual arguments. And poor Larry Pratt was just, how do you go on national television and the host basically just calls you a bunch of names and tells everybody that you're evil. Yeah. So I would love to talk about that, because let's face it, gun control is going to be it's at the forefront. It's going to be a huge issue this
They're
election
after
season.
Your guns, absolutely. We might want to get not for today's show, but maybe a show maybe like on Monday's show or Tuesday's show or something like that. Maybe some excerpts from that audio.
Sure,
because that would be interesting for us to have.
Or have Larry back to talk about.
Yeah, that would be even better. Of course, Piers Morgan is so interesting. Of course, there's a petition now with tens of thousands trying to get him kicked out of the United States, and now the British have their own petition that they don't want him back. So, who's Piers Morgan to disparage anyone?
That's
All right. I am Kevin Price. This is The Price of Business. You remember, the show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. More after this.